Hello there, be welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm gonna talk about extensive reading and some things that I've been thinking about extensive reading and I've been realizing about it. Well, firstly, I would like to introduce this series here. It's the MDJ. As always, it's called my daily journal, although it isn't very daily. Well, I've bought some new books, right? I'm buying books through Amazon because I think it is a very useful tool for finding books, finding good books, I mean. And I've got a collection of English books already. It is reasonable. I'm the type of person who likes to read physically if I can. If I can't, like, I would be very sad. Like, if I need to read every day ebooks and read online, I would not like it at all. Because I'm the type of person who likes to take the physical book and read. And that's why I'm buying a lot of books. Well, I've I've realized some things interesting about extensive reading in my routine, in my journey. But before that, I want to show to you some books that I've bought recently. And I want to show to you this collection here. Well, it is from this collection, Bath Classics. And I've bought uh, five of them. I have five books of the collection. The most recent ones is Black Beauty and Pinocchio. Well, you see, I already have read more difficult books than those, and I reached a level that I can pretty much understand uh, any book that isn't very specific or literature very hard. I can pretty much understand without any problem. And it is interesting that I've chosen these books because although I have a reasonable amount of proficiency in reading, I do not feel very comfortable yet with extensive reading as much as I want because I want to read literature, philosophy, everything in English as well. I want to be able to do so because one thing that's very important for me is to be able to read in the original language. Like, obviously, I cannot read all the books in the original language because I know just a few languages. I actually right now I just can read in Portuguese, which is my native language, and read in English. Um, my French is very bad for reading. I'm not proficient at all, and my Latin is very worse indeed. Although I can read probably some things here and there, I started to read the Vulgata Latina in English. Oh, but sorry, in Latin, and I can understand it because I already know the text, but it is hard. But my point here is if I have the opportunity, I would prefer to read a book in the original language, right? That's one of the reasons that I'm learning languages in general, to be able to read in the original language. So I wouldn't read a book that is in Portuguese or originally in Portuguese. I wouldn't read it in English because that doesn't make sense for me. You see, I already know Portuguese, I'm native in Portuguese. Why would I read this book in English, right? and it's far easier to me to get the books here in Portuguese because I live in Brazil. So I can go to any bookstore that will have that they will have books in Portuguese. Although English books are very hard to find sometimes. Some more specific English books that I want is either too expensive or not accessible at all. But then, with the language learning, one of my goals is to be able to read. Um, is to be able to read in the original. So I want to, in Portuguese, keep reading books in Portuguese. Books that are made in Portuguese, I will keep reading in Portuguese because I already have this advantage. I can read Portuguese, and books that are made in English, I want to read them in English. Like if I want to read a new literature book that is in English, I would do it in English because I already know English to a decent level. I want to keep improve my French and my Latin because I want to be able to read in those two languages as well. So if I'm willing to read a book that is originally in French, I would be able to do so without any problem. Presently, I can't read hard books in French. Probably I could read very basic adapted books for learners, but nothing very difficult. Um, and right now, if I want to read a book that is originally in French, I will either try to get an English edition of it, or I would read in Portuguese. But my point is, reading literature and reading in general is a very important skill for me. For I want to work with reading, and that's a very important part of my work currently, and it shall still be a very important part of my work. And then that's a thing that I've really looking forward with my English. I want to keep reading and to get increasingly harder books. But one thing that I've been thinking about is which books should I read in English, right? And then I've bought those new books. I will show them. Well, first there is Pinocchio here, a very classic, um, in the literature. There are many adaptations to the movies, and um, it's a very famous book. I really enjoy like classic literature, even if it is for children, because I do not care if like a good book is made for children, but if the quality is good and it's not like that dumbed out um, book, I would read gladly. I would read very happy because I like literature in general. And then I find Pinocchio very interesting. I have read a version of it in Portuguese, but it was many years ago. I do not remember which version was it, and if it was the original version or an adapted version. So I have no idea. And I do not remember the story. I remember the story from the movies, but not the actual story from the reading. So I will read this. And another book that I am already reading is Aesop's Fables, which is the most classic book from this collection, probably. Uh, Aesop was a writer from ancient Greece, probably. It's believed to be from ancient Greece. I think, yeah. Um, Here, let me read a part of the book for you. Aesop was supposedly a writer from ancient Greece who is thought to have lived around 600 years before Christ. Some historians claim that he was a slave who gave wise advice to his masters, while others believe that he was simply a legendary figure to whom a large number of fables were attributed and that he never actually existed. Whether he existed or not, we have his fables here. And I'm reading this book. I'm right now in the page 162. There is 100 stories in it, and I think I'm in the 60th-ish something. I'm not sure, but I have already passed half the book. I'm actually in the end, almost in the end. I'm enjoying quite much. I will talk about it later, talk more about it, but I'm enjoying quite a lot Aesop's Fables, and I think it's a very interesting book with very useful and important teachings. Well, thirdly, there is Peter Pan, or Peter Pan. I think Peter Pan is more correct. Um, Another classic story, as you see, best classics, all classic books. And then I really enjoy classics, that's why I've bought all of them. Peter Pan is very famous, is very well known, and people love to talk about Peter Pan. We have Disney adaptations to it, and other adaptations as well outside Disney, and it's a very famous story. Thus, I've chosen to buy this book so I can read it as well, and I'm quite interested in the Peter Pan story. I've read the Peter Pan. I've read a part of the Peter Pan story before in Portuguese, but I do not remember at all. There is this book here as well that I've bought. It's called Black Beauty, and it is from Anna Sewell. I do not know this book actually. I saw that it was from the same collection. The price was good, and I thought, you know what, let me buy it. Apparently, it's a classic because it's in the same collection. Although I do not know the story at all and I never heard about it, perhaps I could be uh, forgetting a story that I have already read or listened, watched to an adaptation. Perhaps they adapted and changed the name, and I know the story, but I do not know the name of it. But we will see later. Then this is the other book that I've bought. And then there is the last book, Arabian Nights, which is a very famous book indeed. I know Arabian Nights from I do not recall where was the first time in which I've heard about Arabian Nights, but again, it is a very famous story. So uh, I wished to buy it, and so I did. I will read it as well in the future. Well, it is quite interesting. I really think Arabian Nights is a great story. I have never read it in Portuguese, but I hope to enjoy reading in English. Although there is a thing that I've been thinking about, those stories doesn't seem to be adapted for learners. I'm reading Aesop Fables, and it doesn't seem to be adapted for learners. But I am afraid that perhaps they are, because like I think Aesop has a lot of fables, but in that book specifically there are only 100 of it. And I don't know, I do not know either this is a lot or it's all of those. all of Aesop fables. I think not. But then it doesn't actually matter, you know. If the story is well made, it's okay. Although I would like to know if the story is complete, and I like to read original books, um, because I do not find the adaptation to be a thing that I think worth my time. I prefer to read an easier book than to read a harder book adapted for learners, because I like to read the original, right? So let me give an example. You could take, let's say, a very hard book in English, let's say Hamlet, and you could do an adaptation for learners. That's okay, and I understand people who like to read adaptations, but I'm not in the group of those people. I do prefer to not read Hamlet if I'm not in the level yet. And actually, I have Hamlet here. That's a 1939 edition. Um, just to show to you guys. And I haven't read it yet for many reasons, but mainly because my English is not in the level of read it effortlessly yet, so that will take a while, and I want to read other things easier before then to start um, read Hamlet. But then I do not like to read like very very easy books in the sense of being adapted. I do prefer to read easy books in the sense of they are easy. For example, The Little Prince is a book that is quite easy. It uses a limited vocabulary, and you can enjoy it with not that much of a level in the language. And I prefer to choose those stories but being the original than to get adapted. That's just me. Although I do like stories that are made for learners, um, like they are crafted thinking into learners and not adapted from other books. I don't know if you guys can understand what I'm saying, but I hope you do. So yes, let's talk a little bit more about Aesop fables. I've been reading this daily or trying to do so. Some days I haven't read, but I'm almost finishing. As I said, it's a very beautiful edition. I do like it. There is always the picture of animals in the side of the story, and that's a very interesting thing because you can acquire vocabulary through images. So, example, if I do not know what a peacock is, and they show the image of a peacock, I will understand it through context. There are some names of animals actually that I didn't know before, and I still am not sure what they mean. I need to study vocabulary of animals more specifically. I find that this is a thing that I could improve a lot if I do so, because I do not know much about vocabulary of animals, and thus this is a thing that I want to think about. And this book is already helped me with it because I'm catching some vocabulary through immersion, and that's the main point that I want to discuss here. 90 minutes in the video, I'm gonna talk about the main point now, but then I think that the first part of this video was important to give some context. Well, what I want to discuss is the efficiency of the extensive reading method. You see, for the Aesop fables, I'm not using an um I'm not using an intensive reading method at all. I'm only doing an extensive one. And all those books are very good because they come with a QR code here, which is basically the audiobook of the book. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the audiobook and reading simultaneously. So I'm reading the book with the audiobook there, and thankfully the audiobook was in British English, which is even better since the British English is the variation of English that I'm most interested in, so I can have input, meaningful input with it. Well, what have I been thinking about extensive reading? For those who don't know, extensive reading is when you read a book without be worrying um, of the words that you don't know and without stop to check things or use a dictionary. Some people say that you can. Some people say that you can use some dictionary and stop a little bit and still be an extensive reading. But for me, a pure extensive reading is when you read without any worrying of check if a word is what you understand that is, or try to understand a word, trying to understand a grammar concept, or trying to really figure out actively what the person means. Like, you can understand and try to figure out what the person, the writer, means, but you shouldn't be worrying too much with it. If you get the general context, it is already okay, and you can move on and let the words come naturally. It's almost an ALG method, and you can use extensive reading for ALG. You do use extensive reading for ALG. I do not want to get into the discussion of methods here, but just trying to talk about the technique for now. I think the technique of extensive reading is quite efficient. From my experience and from what I have heard of other people, it seems a very useful technique because if you do it simultaneously with audio, it's even better because you haven't um, the listen input and the reading input. And to do extensive reading is good because you overload yourself with very specific use of the language. What I mean by that? Well, if you watch a lot of content in YouTube, you will have certain um, topics and certain ways of speaking that will repeat. For example, in the YouTube is very common to see the YouTuber saying, "Welcome to my channel," or "Give a like and subscribe." Hit the subscribe button, and the things that is very common to YouTube saying. And the language that we listen to is very similar to how they are being speaking normally, although it is not quite the language that is spoken by natives when they talk with each other, because the language that's spoken by natives is not like looking towards a screen and talking as I'm doing now. If I try to speak with someone else, probably my English would be very different from the English that I'm presenting to you because I'm trying to explain my point and I'm not chatting with someone else. And that's very different, but it still is very similar because we are talking, and if the video isn't scripted, the person is talking without um, thinking too much about it. And the book is different because the writer have dedicated time to it, a lot of time actually, and he or she actually have dedicated a lot of time thinking into how to write this or that or that sentence and to sound natural and to replicate the language. And it is a very different experience from only watch content. By reading, you have access to a language that it isn't very common sometimes, and that's very useful for your develop the sense of knowing what is right or wrong in the language. That type of intuition is built upon extensive reading quite a lot. You have access to vocabulary quite a lot, and in books the vocabulary repeat a lot, so you can have access to the most common words, and they keep repeating frequently, so you can acquire a lot of new vocabulary, and that's very interesting. What have I realized is that surprisingly my English, oh, sorry, my English was was funny. Surprisingly, my English has improved through the English through the extensive reading, and not only my written English has improved, but also my speaking English. It can be untrue, it can seem untrue because my speaking for some reason is broken today. And I do think I need to practice more speaking because I'm not practicing it enough, and then it is becoming rusty. But uh, one thing that I've realized, I've been writing in English. Here is my notebook. Um, I've been thinking about some things and note them down in English, creating some stories, and I will start to write a novel, all in English, for training my writing skills. And what I have realized is when I've tried to write my thoughts and the story, it came more naturally than it used to be. And I think that's because I've used extensive reading for a reasonable amount of time. And now I have developed a sense of storytelling, and my writing has improved reading because I'm reading all the great books, great books of literature. And then I think extensive reading is massively helpful. I think I will keep doing it. I'm doing right now around 15 minutes per day, a little bit more sometimes, but I will try to increase the amount of time that I spent with extensive reading, probably to 20 minutes or to even to 30 minutes, because find it very helpful and useful for my writing and for my speaking as well, because I'm developing vocabulary and everything. And that's it. I just want to share this thought on extensive reading. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you have any commentaries on the topic, please leave a comment down below. And I will hopefully be able to read all the books that I want to read. My plan is to finish this book here, and then I probably will start Arabian Nights, and then after that move to another book, and keep moving. And hopefully I will keep buying new books to keep reading and doing this um, extensive reading. With this extensive reading, I think my English will improve. Shadowing is a thing that I've been thinking a lot as well. I've spoke about shadowing in a recent video, and I want to do extensive reading and shadowing of those, because I have the audiobook. I want to take, let's say, a story of Aesop, which is very short. Here is one story, for example. It's 1 minute, 2 minutes long. Analyze all the story, analyze the audio of it, and shadow. And do it a lot of times until I become able to know the story by heart. When I reach this level of literally be able to talk all the story, I will move to another. And then keep doing that until I get really proficient through shadowing and to extensive reading. Thank you very much. See you guys later. Bye.